Last fall time, I started an experiment that I did not get a chance to finish, and that was comparing the difference between the Kratky method and also the DWC. The DWC, which is the deep water culture method, that one is an active form of hydroponics, where they have the Kratky method, which is a passive form of hydroponics. I wanted to know which one was better, the Kratky or the DWC? Which one was easier to grow? Which one gave me less problems? And also, which one grew the best cabbage? I guess we're gonna go find out. What's going on, my plant peoples? I am the ADHD gardener, where I use gardening, houseplants, and humor as a much needed form of mental health, therapy, sobriety, learning how to navigate this crazy ass world with ADHD, using tips, tricks, and hacks we can find in our garden, but also healthy living, because we are definitely gonna need that. So I did this experiment last year. Well, I started it. Problem was that in good old ADHD fashion, I procrastinated the heck out of it. And due to my procrastination, those plants wound up getting aphid infestation and they died. So I had to come back and just redeem myself by by doing this experiment all over again. I learned a lot about myself and procrastination. I cannot procrastinate anymore. So I have not done that this time. And as a result of me really paying attention, I wound up getting some really good results. So we're going to be talking about that. Now, the first video, if you haven't seen that, I would really suggest checking that out, because it was all about the setup on how you set up the DWC versus the Kratky method. So I'm not going to get in depth about that. But what I am going to go in depth a little bit about in this video is the water maintenance, which has to do with pH levels. Also, TDS, which is total dissolved solvents in that, which definitely had to play a part in that. Nutrients, and also what can you do about an aphid or possible problems that comes along with starting some hydroponics indoors. In the first video, I only used about 2-gallon buckets apiece. Now, I found that those buckets were very small, so I decided to switch them up and use each container 5-gallon buckets. This time I decided to switch it up and use 5-gallon buckets instead, because it needed the amount of space. Not only that, for the amount of water that is going to be used up. Now, depending on the type of veggie that you're growing, maybe you won't need that much water. However, I'm growing and experimenting with cabbage. So being that cabbages are like really big guzzlers of nutrients and water, then, I needed a 5-gallon bucket. So in the first video, I wound up using a pool noodle and a net cup, and I said, you know what, that is not a good look. So this time around, I wound up switching it all up by using a nursery pot. You can always still use a net cup, but you're gonna need a net cup for the size of the veggie that you're growing. And I knew that being that these cabbages were gonna be very top heavy, I needed to switch to something larger. I did not have a net cup, so I wound up using a nursery pot, which still worked out fantastic. I also wound up switching to leca balls, which was going to provide a little more stability than what I had before. That actually worked out pretty good, but there was a little caveat to using the leca balls. I found that the leca balls wound up holding on to a lot of salts. So you're going to see over time that your leca balls are going to wind up turning a little on the whitish side. That's not really too much of a problem though. If you're growing hydroponics or any plants indoors, you're going to need a strong fan, because that is what's going to mimic the outside. And also, that's going to help deter those pests from sticking onto the plant. So since I've been having a fan, I put it on medium strength, then I have had no bugs whatsoever. So that took care of the bug problem. And that was awesome. So you're definitely going to need a fan on that one. What I did encounter was actually powdery mildew. Now, you wouldn't think that you would not get powdery mildew indoors, but yes, you can get powdery mildew, and that's for a few reasons. One, that you don't have enough airflow. I had the fan, but that means I had to kick up the fan strength. So I went from low to a medium, strength of the fan. The second one is that it wasn't warm enough inside of this house. Now, frankly, it is what it is, because, not everybody can have enough energy and heat or money to pump up the heat when you're trying to grow hydroponics indoors. So that was a major problem in itself. But it's all good, because, you could always use that mixture of milk spray or also baking soda spray. So I wound up using the baking soda spray, and that resolved the problem along with the fan. And of course, you already know I already pressed Jose to give me some more heat, so that took care of the problem. The water part is where it starts to get interesting, because that involves a lot of testing of the water, the nutrients, also the pH. So we're definitely going to get into that. This is boring, okay? Let me tell you, this part is a little boring, but if you really want to get into hydroponics, this is absolutely necessary to grow some really good veggies. So there's a few things that we're going to be testing out for. The first one is the pH. Now, when growing hydroponics, Most plants, if not all of them, like a pH range between 5.5 and 6.5. Now, if you look at this little chart right here of the nutrients that get absorbed with different pHs, you'll notice that between 5.5 and 6.5 is a good range for all the nutrients to be absorbed into the plant, which is what we were looking for. I noticed that my pH was like at 7.5. That was way too high, and I knew that not a lot of nutrients would be able to be readily absorbed into the plant. So that means I needed to lower the pH big time. There was actually two ways of lowering the pH, which was pretty cool. I wound up getting the good old chemical version that you can buy off of Amazon. I'll link that in the description down below. But also what I actually tried out and actually worked was using lemon juice. If you don't have access to Amazon or you didn't want to buy that because you ain't got no money, it's all good because I had to test out two different kinds and I wound up using lemons. Lemon juice actually worked. You're going to wind up using a lot of lemons though, I'm not going to lie. But it does work and it is effective. I was really actually quite surprised at that lemon. But it is, acidic, so what can I say? It did work. Got your pH down packed. Now we're going to need to learn something called electrical conductivity, EC for short. If it's anything that you're going to want to learn, it's that one, EC. Now that measures the electrical conductivity that passes through the water inside of these containers. And that just measures the total amount of dissolved solution, which brings me to TDS. When it comes to growing cabbage, because that's what I'm growing right now for this experiment, the electrical conductivity, the EC, likes to be within the range of 2.5 and 3.5. That is the ideal amount of nutrients that needs to be inside of this water. So I noticed that when I was testing it, because remember, we're going to have to test it using one of these little meters. Now this meter does a little bit of everything, 5 in 1. I know this information is so boring, but it's super, super informative and you're definitely going to need this. You need one of these meters. These meters is going to test how much electrical conductivity, how much nutrient solution is inside of these containers. Being that I was looking for an EC between 2.5 and 3.5, I noticed when I tested the water that it was very, very low, which meant to me that I did not have enough nutrients circulating in these containers. When I first started setting them up, I used the master blend solution as a base solution for all of these containers. However, as the plant starts to continue and grow, you're going to find that it needs continuous nutrients. And this is where the electrical conductivity comes into play because that's what measures what's going on inside of that water. I'm not going to lie, both of these systems work really, really well. I was pleasantly surprised to know that they both did pretty darn good. That Kratky method, awesome. But what I did notice was a difference in the water consumption. Another thing I've noticed with the water difference was the Kratky wound up sucking up a lot more water faster than the DWC. And I believe that has to do with the oxygen levels. Now the DWC, which is the deep water culture, that has a bubbler inside of these containers. So being that it was, getting pushed a bunch of oxygen, I guess there was no need for the plant to just kind of suck up as much water as it did with the Kratky. The Kratky method definitely sucked up a lot more water a lot faster than the DWC. Now, as far as the plant growth itself, which one do you think reigned supreme? They were very, very close. Very, very close. The DWC, the deep water culture, did win for height and the amount of growth. But let me tell you, that Kratky was right up the DWC's butt because you can't really tell too much of the difference, really. I mean, can you pull off the Kratky system by itself? Yeah, you can. And I was pleasantly surprised on how well the Kratky system did in, trying to catch up to the DWC. For real, I was pleasantly surprised about that. Can you can you get away with not having a bubbler system? Yeah, you can. It's not that necessary, to be honest, because the Kratky method is doing really, really well. And I was quite surprised about that. But was I really though? I mean, I knew the Kratky method had a system going with it, but man, I didn't really think it was going to be that effective, until now. Did the cabbage and the broccoli grow better for the DWC? Yeah, it did. It grew a little bit bigger, a little taller, a little more bushier. However, was it large enough of a difference to really prefer the DWC over the Kratky? Not really. Not really. The Kratky method required no added extra bubbler system. For the bubbler system, the DWC, you need the stone, you need the tubing, and you also need the oxygen machine, or the bubbler machine. For the Kratky method, all you need to do is replace the water a lot more frequently. So I guess it depends on what you want to use your energy for. You know what I mean? But I gotta say, Kratky for the win when it comes to laziness level. You know, if you don't want to do a lot of work, the Kratky for the win. If you really care about maybe not using up as much water a lot faster, then the DWC. So I guess it's just a personal preference as to which one you would prefer. And I mentioned all that TDS, EC, pH. I know them numbers and bullshits were annoying as heck, but this is the reason why hydroponics with all those letters and numbers is absolutely needed, because hydroponics is not nearly as forgiving as the soil out there. But I hope you enjoyed this video. This is a great experiment to find out. Now I'm gonna keep this experiment going. Hopefully maybe I can get a cabbage going on. Now I know that has to do with flowering and all that, so maybe I'll do a part 3 because I have a full spectrum grow light. I believe that I can be able to get an actual cabbage. And now that I'm getting better at paying attention more to my plants, I think I can actually pull this off. I really hope you enjoyed this video and you got some good information out of it. Let me know down in the comments below. Have you tried this before? And if you have tried it, have you ever tried growing a cabbage, a pepper, a tomato in any one of these systems? I am so curious. I would just love to know. If you did enjoy this video, don't forget to smash this like button. Also, don't forget to share this video if you know anyone that wants to, do a little experimentation with some hydroponics. Until the next episode, you guys, where you and me both are going to be growing our happiness one plant at a time, one day at a time. God bless you all. Until the next episode, peace and love.